and today's review is this, which is the Hornby Smokey Joe. Obviously this is a railroad locomotive, so we're expecting cheap and cheerful, but lately railroad prices seem to be quite expensive. However, I got this off of Amazon for a steal of a price, and I think it was about £20, so not a bad loco. But is there a reason why it's discounted? Let's find out. So if you're wanting to get a Smokey Joe for yourself, if you don't already have one, this is R3064 BR Black 040 Smokey Joe number 56025. And as you can see, railroad packaging doesn't have like the sleeve, so we'll just get into it. So sliding the packaging open, we have the motor manual, as well as lubrication, body removal, yeah, standard stuff. It's just a Hornby 040 at the end of the day. There we go. So we'll have a look at the detail pack. This is an interesting one. So let's get them out of the way. So we've got the vacuum pipes, which I'm normally expecting, but we've also got crew. We've got a coal shoveler and a driver by the looks of it. So unpainted, of course, but you know, it's always a nice touch. Definitely. So just carefully pipe them back in the little hole. Let's look at the loco. Get it out. There we go. Wow. I was not expecting that. So this is very heavy, and I can tell you that the whole chassis is made of die-cast. So up to there, that's die-cast, and this is plastic. I think there might be metal whistles. Yeah. No sprung buffers. But, wasn't really expecting that on a railroad loco, but yeah, definitely a die-cast chassis. That's something to behold. Also got the Smokey Joe lettering on the side, a completely fictional locomotive, but a staple of Hornby's railroad range. The lining is very nice, so if you can see that there's the red and white lining, a bit of riveting on the body. It is very basic at the end of the day. Very nice valve gear, albeit a bit chunky. Standard large couplings, and they can't be replaced either, so a bit of a shame about that. I do think that although they are a railroad range, I think they could be retooled, especially for the new asking price, to have the ability to put a NEM pocket in there. Pickups, all-wheel pickup, but just the front wheels that are driving wheels. That's not too bad. So at least hopefully going across the points shouldn't cut out. And then cab interior. As you can see, there is some cab interior, but it's unpainted. Although I guess you could always paint it, but it'd be a bit tricky to do so. And there's no glazing on the windows, but to be expected at the end of the day. as well as there is no coal load. So I don't know how Smokey Joe is supposed to be functioning, or what the point of the stoker is, because there's no coal. Oh well. Yeah, let's get him down onto the track and we will see how Smokey Joe does. Alright folks, we've got Smokey Joe down onto the track, and I'm going to give him some juice in a minute and we'll see how it performs. I mean, you know, I'm never really expecting a lot from an 040 from Hornby, because they're never really all that good, but you know, I think everybody should have a Smokey Joe in their collection. It's just a staple at this point. Fire them up. Stalled on points. Yep, stalled again. There we go. Yeah. Might be me being a bit unfair. But at the end of the day, I think that is... It's not necessarily a crawl. Well, there we go, that's a bit better. Yeah. So yeah, at a slow speed, you can... Although it seems to only be in reverse. Hand of God again. Alright. Although technically he has been running before, but I'll tell you what we'll do. Because he has been set in storage for a year, I'm going to give him a bit of a run in and see if that can improve the crawl. And stop. That's right, so we ran in. Let's see if that 4 crawls any better. No. That's it, the backwards crawls. Tremendous. Like, the slow speed in the backwards, it's just backwards, reverse. Yeah, just forwards is very coggy, and it's stalled again. I don't know. Let's get it coupled up to some wagons and we'll just let it run. That's the best way. We'll just accept. Can't go in a slow speed forwards, but you can reverse. So yeah, it is what it is. There we go. So I've got Smokey Joe hooked up to 7 wagons. I don't think that's particularly excessive, but you know, we've got 2 Edinburgh, 2 Eckington, 2 Bolsover, and a North Eastern brake van. So let's give him some juice and stalled. And we're away. And this is how far we've got. It could be, I know this Bolsover wagon is a little bit temperamental. Its wheels don't spin all that freely. So I'll bring him back and we'll let him set off for a second time, and we'll take the Bolsover wagons off and replace them with something else. Okay, so we've got Smokey Joe hooked up to 7 wagons. We've got 2 Edinburgh 20-ton wagons, we've got 2 Eckington 20-ton wagons, and we've got 2 Tidmouth Milk wagons, as well as a Northeastern brake van. So let's give him some juice and we'll send him on his way. He's on his way. Definitely looks like he's struggling though. He's at 40% speed. Let's push down a few, please. That seems a bit more smooth, doesn't it? Let's see how he does over the points. A little stutter. Oi. Sit. Sit. You're disobedient. Sit. Lizzie, sit. Too busy watching trains, aren't you? What are you doing? You happy? Okay, so now it's time for everybody's favourite part, which is the ratings. So this is for the Hornby Railroad Smokey Joe 040 locomotive, and we're going to start off with the performance. So the performance, I've awarded it 3 stars, and it might seem a little bit generous, but for an 040 which doesn't have the most powerful motor at all, it certainly did perform very well. It had that really great slow speed control in reverse, but yeah, certainly let it down in the forwards display. Not necessarily a great puller either. Obviously, this locomotive doesn't have traction tyres, which is a bonus, but certainly can't really pull a high rake of freight train or coaches. I got 7 wagons out of it, and it definitely was struggling a little bit. So that's why I've given it 3 stars. Probably a little bit on the generous side, but you know, um, it's got to award at some point somewhere. Detail wise, I've given it 2.5 stars, and that is because although it's got the diecast chassis and certainly does have metal whistles and the valve gear on the top, it's lacking in detail on the cab area. And although it's a railroad locomotive, I certainly think that locomotives such as this that have been in the range for so long, you know, is it really going to be that bad to just paint the cab? As well as obviously there's no coal load. I mean, certainly someone might be able to point that out in the comments down below. Is there meant to be a coal load on these types of locomotives, or is it like a separate trailer that will be carried behind it? But for me, it just seems a bit weird. So yeah, drop that in the comments down below if you can enlighten me a little bit. But yeah, the detail is very simple. There is very little separately fitted parts. Obviously, we've got no glazing in the windows, no cab detail. The only thing it's really got going for it is the fact that it's got metal whistles and valves. That's pretty much it, really. There isn't much besides that. That's sort of where we get to the livery. I've been a little bit generous with this, and I'm starting to think maybe it was a bit too generous, but the reason I've awarded it 4 stars is just because of how iconic the Smokey Joe locomotive is. I certainly do think that it is one of those staple locomotives that everybody should have, but yeah, I might have been a little bit generous with this sort of rating. It's not necessarily a bias, I just think I've been a bit overly generous. Who knows, I might do a re-review in a year or two, and we'll see if my rating is the same, given a bit more time with the locomotive. Quality wise, I've sort of just put it in between the performance and the detail, 2.7. Same reasons, really. It is just very basic. That is what you get at the end of the day with most railroad locomotives. But certainly, it is a very basic locomotive. Great for kids. There's very little to break, and I think that's the advantage of having a diecast chassis. If it's running over cars or damsels in distress, then you're certainly not going to damage the footplate if it gets knocked off the track or dropped or anything like that. Obviously the body is made of plastic, so that could still crack, but certainly it's a little bit more tougher wearing than most models are, so definitely more marketed towards the younger generation. And then value, the reason I've not given it 5 stars is purely the difference in price that I've paid and the price it's listed on Hornby.com. So the price I actually paid for this, and this was on Amazon, which I don't usually order locomotives off of Amazon. I might get rolling stock every now and again if there's a pretty good deal, but I try to support local model shops, but this was one of those deals that I sort of just couldn't really pass up. And it was £22. So £22 for a brand new locomotive. It wasn't second hand, brand new. I thought that was a pretty decent deal, and that's the reason why I sort of took it. Whereas on Hornby.com it is £49.49. So we may as well just round that up. It's 50 quid. It is sort of getting a little bit beyond a joke. I mean, £50 for this kind of locomotive is pretty expensive. I certainly even think you know, like I even think like 40 quid. 40 quid would have been a bit more reasonable, but the fact that we're basically at £50 now, it's very expensive for what it is. And this tooling has been out for so long that it will have paid for itself tenfold. Um, it's just strangely, you know, it's an outdated locomotive. It doesn't have the NEM pockets. It's the old chunky coupling that you can't change. So the tooling is ancient, and I think that's the annoying thing is the price keeps going up, but the features, it's not getting a retool, and I think that's what a lot of these railroad locomotives are crying out for, is a retool, which certainly won't cost a lot. You know, you've got the basic design, you can keep that. It's just basically adding a few new features, and I certainly think chuck in some glazing, chuck in some NEM pockets, and I think, yeah, you could probably charge the price tag of £50 for it, and that will make it certainly a little bit more worth it, in my opinion. You know, it's nice that we've got the crew. I'm not sure why most locomotives don't come with those as an optional extra. Obviously, yeah, we've got to paint them ourselves, but not necessarily a bad touch. You know, at least you can sort of personalise it. Especially if you've got kids, you know, you can get them to paint the crew, and you know, it doesn't necessarily matter then if they're wearing authentic crew overalls. You know, if they want to paint them neon pink, let them go for it. But certainly to have these outdated features, I think is a little bit rubbish, and especially with how modern day rolling stock is certainly phasing out these larger tension lock couplings. Um, Eventually it's going to cause more problems because the narrow ones do sometimes have a little bit of an issue working with these, and yeah, I think it's just needing a bit of an updated facelift, so to say. So that comes to our overall rating of 3.24. So it's not quite 3.5, not even 3.25, but just below. And I don't think that's a bad place really for it to rank. Certainly the Hornby 040s, they're not the most reliable. They do cut out a lot on the points, as you've seen in this video. It's just because the wheelbase just isn't long enough, and especially on DC, they don't have stay alives or anything like that. So yeah, they just cut out every now and again, and you do have to be the hand of God and just give it a little nudge. But certainly, I'd say the lower speeds that this has shown, certainly in reverse, you know, it'd be a great little shunter in a shunting yard. The detail wise is very basic, so it's definitely for kids. Like I already said, it's great. You know, there's very little for it to break, so you know, if you've got a little bit of a butterfingered younger child, yeah, it's not necessarily going to probably break the locomotive. And yeah, you know, as I say, the Smokey Joe is an iconic locomotive, and I'd love to know in the comments down below, do you have a Smokey Joe? And if you do, how long have you had one for? What sort of generation is yours from? We'll see who has got the oldest in the comments. And if you don't, why haven't you? You know, that would be another interesting topic, is why don't you have the Smokey Joe? Do you think it's a little bit childish, or do you prefer more realistic models? It's, you know, it's just a great discussion to have in the comments down below, as well as obviously if you've enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up as well as a comment or anything like that. Really makes my day when I read your comments. So certainly don't forget to drop a comment down below. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe. It's free to do so, so it doesn't cost you anything, but massively helps me out, and I really appreciate anybody that has subscribed already to the channel. You know, in the whole YouTube algorithm, it just helps me get more recognition if you subscribe, as well as hit that like and drop a comment. You know, it really does go a long way if you do so. But that is all from me today, guys. Great to do another Steam review. I've definitely got a lot more planned to come, so we'll be doing a few more Steam in the future. Well, the not so distant future. I've got a few planned, so stay tuned on the channel and watch out for that. But that is all from me today, guys. I hope you have a lovely day wherever you are, and whatever you have been doing, and I will catch you in the next video. Take care, guys.